So once I have this all put together and I have everybody sort of placed where I think that I want them to be, I'm going to take my prairie green, and I take a little bit more of my prairie green, and working from the base upwards, I'm going to fill in these gaps here, try to blend everybody in together. And another nice thing about the floral tape is that the floral tape will hold color. So you can actually blend your floral tape in as well. This is an angled flat brush that I'm using, and it works really well. So here at the base, for example, I didn't do such a great job with my green here, but I can go back now and give it just a little bit more of a dab. Just sort of blend everything back in together and make it look more cohesive. Here is the iris, nice and dry, ready to be completed. So I'm going to add a few little finishing touches to it. The first thing, and you don't really have to necessarily do this, I've taped this iris pretty close to the edge, as you can see, and so you wouldn't necessarily have to put this little finishing piece on here. Here's one that I did where I put a little green piece. You hope you can see it. Yeah, right there. A little green piece to sort of cover where I've joined all the petals together. So that is just a little added piece that you can do. I'll show you how to do that. It's connected on this one. I'm not going to connect it on this one, just so you can see the difference of it. So what I'll do is take a small piece of green paste, and this is moss green paste. I like using the moss green color by Wilton because it takes on so many color variations with how much you use. So you add a little bit and it'll be in a beautiful little light green. You can add more and get this sort of nice medium moss green, a deep color, and you get almost a rose leaf color. So it's very diverse in uses. So I'm going to massage this just to get this a little bit pliable, and I'm going to use my dusting pouch, which has half cornstarch and half confectioner's sugar in there, just to sort of loosen it up. And I'm going to roll this a bit on the thickish side. If you have size guide rings on your rolling pin, roll it to about 1/8 of an inch, or about the width of a cake board, a regular cardboard cake board if you don't. So it's a little bit on the thickish side. And what I'm going to use for this is sort of a generic leaf cutter, a basic little leaf cutter. I think this one's called Creative Leaf, and it's small. It's probably about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch in length. And you could even cut this freehand if you wanted to. So I'm going to cut out this little shape. And we're really going to use this rounded part of it, so that's the part that I'm going to be focusing on. And what I'm going to do is widen this. I'm going to roll it, and you notice I'm rolling it across the cutting board rather than across the coated side of the petal pad, which I would ordinarily do when rolling petals. But what I want to do is really widen this and lengthen it just a little bit, mainly widen it. And as I start in the center and roll to each edge, it'll get thinner and wider. There we go. Then I'll bring over my my iris, and what I'll do is start down here at the bottom and wrap it around like that, just to see how it fits. It's fitting pretty nicely all the way around. Yep, fits pretty nice and covers the main part of the iris. And so once I determined that it covers it nicely all around, then I would go back and put just a little bit of gum glue on there and tack it on. And just a tiny amount of gum glue is necessary. Then once I got that on there, then I'll mash it gently into the stem. I'm trying to get a close angle on here for you. And that will kind of add it. Now we're going to cover this up so it's not really going to be seen. So this would do this little finishing touch. But as I say, I didn't use any glue. I'm just going to leave this one bare, and we'll look at both of them afterwards just to see the difference between the two of them. So moving on, I will add this other little piece, and what I have done for this little bitty flap is I've added 2 white gum paste. I've added a dot of brown and just a dot of yellow. It gives it kind of almost a straw-like color, the brown and the yellow. Just so it was just a sort of a lemon yellow and a regular brown. And I'm going to roll this on the thickish side too. I'm going to roll this to about 1/8 of an inch, same as I did the other one. And this paste is a little sticky, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of vegetable shortening on the cutting edge of here, just a little bit, so it won't stick to my paste. And I'm going to cut out this piece with that little small cutter again. There we go. Now I'm going to widen this again, but not quite as much as I did the last one. I'm going to widen it just a little bit again, and I'm going to lengthen it. So I'm going to give it a little bit more length than I did the other one, and widen it just ever so slightly. So if we were using a ruler there, over here, I'm going to widen it to about 1/2 inch, or this says 2 centimeters, and it's about a little over 1 inch long, 1.25 inches long. But you can vary this. There is no set length or width for this. And bringing over to my iris, what I'll do is I'll wrap it around just to make sure it goes all the way around, which it does with just a little bit of stretching. And then what I'm going to do is put just a little bit of gum glue on the stem, on the actual stem. Wrap it around again, and then attach it where that gum glue was, to sort of make the seal where the gum glue was. And then down here at the rounded base, the pointed end is up at the top. I'm going to twirl and press just to sort of lengthen that a bit. And where you see the point here, I'll accentuate that point just a little bit more and kind of pull it back, so it sits just a little bit away from the iris stem. I'm going to make the leaf now for the iris. I'll show you 2 ways that I make the leaves. For this first one, I'm going to put a little bit of vegetable shortening into my green paste. This has been colored with moss green, Wilton moss green coloring. I have a piece about the size of a walnut here. And I'm going to cut a long, slender leaf. Let me see, where's my iris leaf? Here's a real iris leaf that I picked out of my garden for my little Siberian irises. So I'm going to use that kind of as my guide. Rolling this into a fat sausage on my flat board, I'm going to rock it back and forth to widen it slightly, and then roll it a good long length. I want it to be at least as long as the stem of my iris flower. So let's pull it over and take a peek. Looks fine. Good. Then you can use a lily leaf cutter if you want. I'd like to use this little fondant cutter. I'm going to cut into this. Let me just give this another little roll. This is between about 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch thickness. There we go. I'm going to start here at the bottom and trim up, tapering in at the top. And now I want it to be kind of narrow. I'm going to start in here at the bottom again and taper out just a little bit, keeping it fairly narrow, and go up. There we go. That looks good. If you didn't get a perfect point up at the top, you could take some scissors and sort of give them a little bit of a trim or haircut if you wanted. Now I'm going to take them over here to my lily leaf veiner. I like this one because it's very long and has some very detailed grooves in there. And I'm going to use my cosmetic sponge to press down and vein it. I'm only going to vein it on one side for this particular version. One-sided veining. There we go. That looks good, doesn't it? That was a pretty veining. Now I'm going to bring it over here onto this thick sponge and do a central vein, but I'm going to do it on the flat side. So I'm going to do it on the side that has no imprint on it. I'm going to start here at the base, go right up the center, using the heel, sort of the rounded part of that, right up the center there. Good. Kind of fold it in half like a little taco there. Then I'm going to pull over a piece of foil, so I apologize for the noise. I know it can be kind of noisy working on foil. And I'm going to pull over my lily. What I'll do is I'll give some gum glue here to the lily stem, the iris stem. Remember what you're making, Evelyn? And I'm not going to line up the points, so I'm going to keep the points set on either side of each other, kind of complementing each other. So I'm going to lay it right in there at the base. I'm going to pinch it down here at the base just to kind of get it started. And then I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on either side of the leaf petal. And come back up and give it another little pinch here, 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 all the way down. Like I'm buttoning up a dress. Now you can add more gum glue if you want to, but be judicious with the gum glue, because if you get too much, you'll get a slimy, sticky mess. And nobody wants that. All right. There we go. So all nice and stuck together. And if you got it on here and you felt like, oh, that's too wide, this looks terrible, then what you can do is take your scissors, give it a little bit of a trim. I'm going to trim it down here at the base anyway. And then you can always trim it up a little bit, just to keep it nice and trimmed together. Good. So I didn't lose too much of the veining there. And I'll pull this back. Now what I'm going to do is dry this on the foil will support the petals of the iris. I'm going to dry this on the foil, and then when it's dry, I'll give it a good dusting, and it'll be done. It'll be ready to put in our vase. The other leaf that I want to show you is done on a wire. So I'm going to take some more green paste. I'm going to flip over my board. Remember, this is the large board, and I'm going to use the large groove here for this particular board. What I'll do is massage it, get it working. Roll it into a ball, into a sausage. And I'm going to press down here across the groove. I'm going to roll back and forth across the groove. I'm going to make this about the same, about that, between an 1/8 and a 1/16 of an inch, just till I can see the groove sort of starting to come through. I'm going to get my wire here, peel it away, and you can see I have the groove here on this side. Now before I put the wire in, I'm going to cut my leaf shape, which is kind of opposite from what we usually do. So I'm going to even it off here, and then I'm going to start at the base there, and I'm going to go out and trim it back up to a point there, and same thing over here. Now I'm using the wide part of the groove as my starting point, and go back up. There we go. And then from here, this is a 24 gauge wire. So this is slightly thicker than the wire we used for the iris petals, because this leaf is larger and thicker. So into the wide end of the groove, here I'm going to slide it up, and I'm going to slide it up about 1/3 of the way. About 1/3 of the way there. All right. Now for our veining, I'm going to go back to my veiner, but this time, this is the back of the leaf, this is the front of the leaf. I'm going to vein the back first so that I get a nice imprint on there. Then I'll flip over to the front of the leaf, and I'll press again. I'll try not to lose too much of this good veining that's here on the back. It's inevitable you'll lose some, but the majority of the imprint will be on the front of the leaf. There we go. I'll take this over to my thick foam. I'm still on the front of my leaf here. Don't worry if the wire, can you see how the wire poked through a bit? Just bury it back in, it's okay. And I'm not going to be as forceful as I was when there was no wire here, because you can see that the wire will come straight through. So I'm going to give it a little gentle veining from the base of the leaf up to the tip. Good. Now, I want to give this one just a little bit of movement. You wouldn't have to. You could leave it just like this, but I do want to give this just a little movement. So I'm going to flip it over. Here's the back where the grooved side was up. I'm going to use my rolling pin. I like to use a rolling pin on large leaves and petals to give movement because I feel like it really adds a lot to it. And there we go. Now if you lost some veining here, you could go back and take your veining tool and just draw in those lines. That's okay. And I'm doing that on the soft side of the petal. They're just long straight lines. And if you didn't have a corn husk or a lily veiner, you could do this freehand for all of the veining. So that's pretty much it. Let me bring my foil back over. I always like to dry leaves on foil because I feel like they dry faster. And I'll cup it right here at the end. I'm going to give it a little bit of a cupping right here at the end. If you wanted this to really wrap around, then you could wrap it around like a pencil tool or a dowel rod and just dry it in that position, and then it will be very rounded and up against it. But because I already have this particular stem on here, this doesn't need to be so rounded up against the other leaf. It's all right for it to be a little bit of a way. So see, it's drying in sort of a pretty little curve right there. I'm going to leave it, let them dry completely, and then we'll dust them up. Iris. And I'm going to take my leaves that are on wires and put some floral tape on them first. So just a little reminder about how to make half-width floral tape, because this is full-width floral tape. Without stretching the tape, I'm going to fold it almost in half, leaving just a little bit of a tail there, like that. Again, I don't want to stretch it and release the glue yet. Fold it over again, and I'll fold it over one more time. And fold it over so that you can comfortably cut it. If you've got too much thickness here, you won't be able to comfortably cut it in half lengthwise. 2 or 3 times is usually good enough. Now I'm going to use my scissors, my craft scissors, to cut it in half lengthwise. And this is a nice way if you don't own a cell shredder, which is a nice little tool to get yourself some half-width floral tape. It's not perfectly in half, and I'm going to undo it now, still without trying to stretch it too much to release the glue. And I have some half-width floral tape here. So I'm going to use this to wrap the wires of my leaves, and what I'm going to do is stretch it slightly here at the end to release the glue, put the wire on top of the floral tape and wrap it around and give it a little pinch. And I've done this, an inch or 2 down from the leaf. Then I'm going to twirl the leaf while I pull snugly with my left hand and angle down the tape. And I'm go around a couple times, being rather gentle that I don't bang it into everything around it and break the leaf. And then I'm going to gently slide the tape up so it's flush with the base of the leaf. I'm going to twirl it, still supporting it, and moving my left hand down as I angle it and pull it tight. You don't have to go all the way down. I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way down. And this was 24 gauge wire that we used. Slide it on up. And I'm pulling tight with this left hand so that I stretch the tape as I twirl it down, and then just break it off. You can cut it off with scissors if you want, but I find breaking it off works just as well. Okay, so now we're ready to color up these guys. And I'm going to use just a little bit of this brown. This is cinnamon. I love the colors I love the names of these colors because they're so appetizing most of the time. I'm going to use just a dot of this cinnamon. So I'm going to put a little bit on this angled flat brush just to get it a little bit loaded with some cinnamon brown. You can use any kind of brown. I like the cinnamon because it's got just a little bit of red in there. You can't really see the red, but it has just this little overtone of red in there, so that's why I've chosen the cinnamon. And I'm going to dust it on this little flap that we've made out of the straw colored. So I'm going to go down here at the base of where it meets the leaf that I attached on there, and it's almost like dirtying it up a little bit. And this is where the flap looks like it might be getting a little old, a little bit withered. I'm just going to add just a little bit of color in here, just along the tip, that little tip flap right there. So give it a little bit of depth there, doesn't it? So let's do the same thing over here to this one. So again, I'm just going to use whatever is on this paper towel now just to sort of dirty it up and blend it right in there into the leaf. Maybe get just a smidgen there on the leaf and up in there. And that's one of the wonderful things about using these dusting colors is that you can really let your creativity loose and say, oh, it needs a little bit of color over here. It's looking a little flat. I'm going to add a little bit of color in there. And next thing you know, it's come alive for you. So I've added just that little bit of brown into that. And now I'm going to move back into my green. Again, this is my prairie green that I'm using, but any kind of medium green is kind of nice. But I'm going to carry the theme over because I use that at the base of the petals of the irises that I made. And I'm going to use my flat brush, my green flat brush that I used for the petals for this. I'm going to take a larger glob of it over here onto my paper towel. And I don't want to get too much hair on the flap, so I'm going to focus mainly from the base of the leaf up towards the tip of the leaf. Base of the leaf up towards the tip of the leaf. And you don't have to be committed to just one green. If you felt like, oh, I want to add a lot of little different variations to this, you could use the prairie green and then maybe just a little bit darker mossy green to streak in there, and that would look really pretty too. So try to be experimental, and if you have, share it with me. I'd love to see what you've done with your particular iris. It's always fun to see how people take an idea and make it their own. I'm very excited about that concept. All right, and you can see how it's brought out a little bit of the, let's see if I can get that up to you. There we go. You can see how it's brought up a little bit of the veining that looks really nice from the leaf. So we'll add that into it here. And I'm going to do the other iris. There, I got two of them. I've got two of them that I did. I'm going to put two of them in our little vase today. And again, I'm starting here at the base and going up. I'm not loading it up with color, just adding a little bit of dimension to it. Seems to be the word of the day for me, huh? Dimension. All right, putting it up here at the tip of the leaf and tying it in maybe a little bit with that little flap. This is the one that's got the flap on it. The green flap up at the top. And I'm going to try and stay away from that straw colored flap. There we go. Yeah. Adding in. And it's not an enormous amount of color here. Just sort of texturing it up just a little bit. So I'll rest that one over here on a paper towel so that I don't risk it breaking. And now I'm going to go over here with my wired leaves, and I'll add a little bit more color in here. So these will be a little bit more showy on their own, right? So I'll add a little bit more color supporting the leaves, and I want to be particularly careful towards the tip of the leaf in here because that's a real fragile area. If you press too hard, you could chip off the tip of that leaf. So do be gentle. Try not to press down too firmly with your brush. Let your brush do the work. Just lightly drizzling it on here. And here's where, again, you could add a couple of different greens if you wanted to add some interest to it. And I've got this green on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my little brown, a little bit of a brown. I'm just going to add in a little bit of brown area here and there, just because this leaf has in our garden seen better days and he's starting to kind of fade a bit. Let me get a little bit more cinnamon on here, and especially along the back. Just going to add just a little bit in sections like that. You don't need an art degree for this. Just think of what you might like your leaf to look like. Or take a look at leaves out in the garden and see what they look like. Okay, the other leaf, we'll get that one done. fling it in. And just a reminder that where you hit that brush first, that's where the intensity of the color is going to distribute. So you want to hit the place that you want a lot of color first with your brush, and then spread it out a little bit. And go. And here we are on the back. Getting excited, we're almost done. There we go. Nice, and now I'll add just a little bit of that cinnamon in here. I've got some sections in here that look like they could use just a little bit of that brown. Right around in here. Great. Now I'm going to flip on my steamer, because a good way to set the color of these irises is to use a steamer, a garment steamer. You could use a tea kettle if you wanted to lightly steam, or what it actually does is melt the gum paste slightly, and that sets the color in there so that it doesn't dribble all over. This is my steamer, and if you can see up here it says caution, hot steam. So you want to be careful when you're using it. It's a garment steamer. I got this at a local discount store called Target. We have them all over the United States, and I got this one for like $9.99. It's really good. It shoots out hot steam. It shoots out hot steam here. So you do want to be careful when using it. I tend to recommend gloves for my students who have not had a lot of experience with it. If you don't have a steamer, a tea kettle will work, because what you want is the steam that's coming out. Because I'm going to move him slightly over to the side. And what I'm going to do with the steam shooting out is I'm going to hold my flour about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches from it. And the steam is going to, the heat from the steam is going to slightly melt the gum paste just a little bit, and now it starts to give it a little bit of a glossy look. Hey, can you see better there? Yeah, can you see? Oh, that's good enough. That's enough. And then I'll set it off to the side to dry. I'll do the other one. There we go. And I'm kind of turning it this way and that way so that it gets all the sections of the steamer. And I'll give it just a little bit there at the base. It does get sticky, so you don't want you want to be careful, especially if you're doing those sort of base leaves. You don't want to touch it too much. Gloves would probably be a good idea. See, there's a leaf. The leaf is getting all shiny now, eh? Setting the color in there, and I'm just laying these on some paper toweling. You can even put them in styrofoam. So that went pretty quick, and it only takes a minute or two to dry. And then they'll be ready to put into our vase. I've got my container here. I found this cute little bud vase with the word bloom on it that would make a nice little place setting for my table. And I've wrapped a ribbon around it, just tied it loosely to give it a little bit of oomph there. I love the ribbon sections of stores. They're so much fun. I find it hard to go by a ribbon section without buying some kind of pretty ribbon. For inside the container, this is a fairly narrow opening. So instead of styrofoam, trying to jam styrofoam down in there, because styrofoam is such a great container for holding gum paste pieces when florist wire, I'm going to use some leftover fondant. I've always got bits and bobs of leftover fondant sitting in my refrigerator begging to be used for this particular project, and I'm going to kind of get it massaged up so it's nice and soft, turn it into a fat sausage and plop it down in there and position it down to see how it looks. Now if you didn't have a lot of fondant, what you could do is bump that up with some tissue, some bathroom tissue in there, and then put your fondant on top of the tissue, and that will work. But I've got lots of fondant to get rid of, so I'm going to put it all in there. Good. And what this'll dry firm after a while, but it will hold my pieces really secure here for a good long time. Now I've got two kinds of irises. These are the ones with the pointy standard petals and does not have the green flap piece of gum paste that I put on there. And so I feel like a nice way to sort of cover up that floral tape there is to add my wired leaf in. So here I can add my wired leaf into here. And what I'll use for that, I'm going to put this leaf fairly close up to the iris, and then I'll take my floral tape, full width floral tape, wrap it around the base there, and take it along the bottom here. And wrap it nice and clear. And the color is not too far off. Go. Take that off. I've got some wire left down here that I can use my clippers to clip away. Watch your eyes. There we go. And then if I wanted, I could take some green color and sort of blend that up in there. If I want to take a little bit of my prairie green and sort of blend that up just a little bit if I felt like I really wanted to see it, just to sort of tie it in a little bit. And I wouldn't steam that. What I'm going to do is push it down in here, so you're not going to really see a lot of that floral tape. You're going to mainly see from the base of the leaf upwards. So I'll go ahead, push that into the fondant gently. There. So you can see that it's sitting a little bit, the floral tape portion is sitting a little bit under the lip here. So you're not really seeing it a lot. Now the disadvantage of wrapping the leaf right around the base of the floral tape is that you can't really move the wire around after that. This top part I can just a little bit, and of course the blossoms I can, the petals I can gently, but down here at the base, you know, and that's hardened up, it's stuck in its one position. So you do want to make sure that it's in the position that you want it to be in. But it's looking good for me. Because irises really sit very tall and straight like this one does, then it's not much of an issue for me, but it is something to keep in mind. So I have this one here towards the front with my leaf sticking out, and I'm going to put this one, put him in just a little bit more, a little bit lower. And I'm going to sit this one just a little bit higher, so I'm not going to push it too far in. I'm just going to push it in just a little bit so that it sits just slightly higher than my forward one. And my leaf, I'm not going to attach my leaf because I'm going to put my leaf in, over here, and you could certainly use pliers to help you get this in. Put my leaf in right over in here, and I'm going to bend him back just a little bit. There we go. And he doesn't want it. Nice. Yeah, there we are. So that he stays just a little bit. And the wire is firmly below the lip of the iris. Let me take a look. Yeah, looks okay. Looks all right. I think I might move this just a little bit forward and off to one side. And stick it in and hem down a little bit more. I'm a fiddler and diddler, so I tend to play with these things constantly. Here, let's see. Let me give you a little bit wider look. There we go. And now I've got the iris in there.